Excellent. Welcome. You ready to go? Let's get this started. Welcome everybody to another fabulous, intimate conversation with the Powerful Project. I am thrilled to have you here. I'm your co-host or MC for the day, Elaine Taylor-Klaus with Impact Parents. If you don't know much about the Powerful Project, you should. It is an amazing mental health scholarship program helping families who are caught in the middle overcome barriers to much needed care for parents, teens, and young children. And the Powerful Project awards scholarships based on financial need, covering mental health treatment and support therapies. So if you're interested in helping, you can do that at Venmo at Powerful Project 99 or via the website. And we're really grateful for any and all donations. It is a completely volunteer-run organization, and every dollar goes to help someone in need for services. And we also want to thank our sponsors for this event. The first is We Play OT for being a sponsor for the second year in a row. Flora Glessman and her team of occupational therapists provide support to kiddos of all ages and abilities and are an amazingly outstanding resource specializing in sensory integration. So nice tie into today's conversation. We want to thank Brain Insights and Deborah McNellis, who continues to provide support to the Powerful Project and offers consultation and project support. To Dr. Sunaina Jain for her creative, functional, and out-of-the-box thinking and support. And to the Perspective Center for Holistic Therapy, Stacy Wright and the Perspectives team, who support the mission of the Powerful Project on a daily basis and provide quality mental health services to children and adults, and as a strong clinical partner. And what I'd really like to do, our purpose for being here today, is to welcome our guest and welcome you all to what we're calling an intimate conversation with our guest, Leah Kuypers, who's the creator and author of the book, The Zones of Regulation, which is also a curriculum, which is all about how we talk about and think about and regulate the ways that we feel. Leah is all about providing a framework that fosters self-regulation and emotional control. And her work, The Zones, has been enthusiastically received by educators, therapists, and parents all around the world since its publication in 2011. In addition to developing additional learning tools that supplement the Zones curriculum, Leah also owns a small business, Kuypers Consulting, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and she's the mother of two. She provides training and consultation to parents and schools and professionals, offering workshops on self-regulation and the Zones frameworks to groups locally and around the US, as well as internationally. To date, and this is quite extraordinary, nearly 300,000 copies of the Zones of Regulation have been sold, and the framework has been implemented in districts around the world to support students in their emotional learning. So Leah, thank you for being here. Thank you for the work you're doing in the world and the change that you're making for so many families across the country and across the world. And I turn the floor over to you. Excited to learn.
Well, thank you for the invitation to be here. It's exciting to be a part of this and support the Powerful Project and the amazing services that they connect people in need with the supports that can help them through that. So it's an honor to be with you guys today.
All right. Oh, do you have what you need to share your screen? You need anything?
Oh, you just want me to, well, we didn't really talk about what we would do after they.
Well, and we had a few questions just to start off with. Leah, do you want to share a little bit about yourself and maybe how the Zone started?
Sure. So, yeah, I'm an occupational therapist, and I've worked, I realized I've worked now for the last 2 decades in really supporting regulation, and that has just become a passion that was born out of my work in the schools and seeing the need to help our learners thrive. that there was always the academic skills being taught, but that didn't relate a lot to real world functioning if they didn't have the regulation skills to thrive. And so I just made it my mission to try to truly teach them a lesson rather than often using those punitive lessons that didn't echoing. That often just led to more hurt feelings, low self-esteem, and didn't equate to the results of them being able to do anything more functional and adaptive when they faced stressors. So trying to, just dig into research and my education and learn and grow. And with that came the idea of the zones of regulation, and I put it to work, and students responded, staff responded, caregivers responded. And so it just kind of grew out of something really organic, using it with my caseload and in the schools I was servicing.
And what grades were you servicing when you came up with this concept? What ages or grades?
I had K through 12. So I wanted something that was adaptable depending on age and abilities. And so, I had students with cognitive disabilities. I had students who were, advanced learners. I had students who had, mental health needs, who had academic needs identified. And so it surprises people, but my high school age kids were my strongest push to figure out, how do I give them the tools so that they could be self-monitoring how they're feeling, rather than the aide coming over to monitor them and tell them you need to take a break. So 4-color zones was something that they could keep track of. They could chart over the course of the day where they were at. And we could use that to, in discussions then, when as the OT, I was often only able to be in the room once a week. So then we would weave that language in. And
so when you thought, before you go into the details about the 4 zones, can you talk about let's expand a little bit on the concept of regulation? Like, what does that mean? And what are we really talking about when we talk about regulation?
Sure. So, I think it has layers to this. We work to regulate our emotions, which is apparent to a lot of people. We get frustrated, and how do we use our tools, our strategies to help cope and manage with that frustration. But we also think about, how do we regulate our body? How do we regulate our mind? This energy that we have within us. And sometimes, we need a higher level of energy. When, say, if you're competing in a sport and, you're trying to win, you need to possibly upregulate if you're feeling sluggish. And then we need to downregulate. Sometimes we're trying to get to bed and our mind is racing with all the stress of the day. And so we're trying to wind that body down. So we're trying to then, in essence, be at a place where we can think about where our body is at, where our feelings are at, and how do we manage those feelings, these states, these energy to meet the demands around us, achieve our goals, and provide a sense of well-being for the situation we're in.
So there's something about whether it's adults or children, although clearly the focus came out of the work with children. There's something about finding that pace, that even keel in life. And we often tend to look to external circumstances. And what I'm hearing you saying is that so much of it happens inside.
Absolutely. And, we also co-regulate, which is a really important piece of this puzzle too, is we don't have to do it all alone. We build our tools so internally we can, manage the situation, but we also lean on others for support. And, that starts at infancy and, goes to our last days, where we're leaning on others and, calling a friend, finding a colleague to vent to. So as adults, that's still a resource we're using to help us manage the day-to-day stressors.
So let's talk about the zones of regulation, right? So we know what motivated you to do it, what it's trying to achieve. Tell us about them specifically.
Sure. So I can share my
Now
screen
you can have
here.
that image. Yes, perfect.
Okay. So we got 4 zones to make a simple way to think about, talk about, co-regulate around our feelings. And so the blue zone is those lower levels of energy. Our feelings are kind of down or blue in nature. So we might be sad, sick, tired, bored. Our body's moving slower in the blue zone. In the green zone, we're at that more organized, grounded state of alertness. So physiologically, that body is kind of in that restored state in that green zone. We might feel happy, calm, focused, connected, relaxed when we're in that green zone. And the yellow zone is when we start to have these feelings intensify. The body physiologically is speeding up. We have frustrated, worried, silly, wiggly, excited. And that body, we may feel a sense of starting to lose a bit of control when we're in that yellow zone. It's just these, the magnitude, the intensity, the energy is greater with that yellow zone. But I say a hallmark of that yellow zone is that we still have some of this prefrontal cortex tapping in. We can access that higher level thinking to help support us regulating that yellow zone a little easier than when we're in the red zone, where we have these really big, overwhelming, intense feelings washing over us. So it can be, angry, furious, it can be terrified, it can be elated, ecstatic, we're exuberant about something, devastated, out of control is kind of that sense that we might have in our body, is that we're just not as able to manage or control these bigger feelings that we have. But with the zones, what we're really working towards is helping to build this awareness of where we're at, and then find our tools and strategies that relate to each zone so that we can build in more capacity to regulate and manage each of these 4 zones. So
do people tend to be in one zone or another, or what causes people to land in these different zones?
Just moving through our day, often, we move through the different zones just based upon events in our day, timing. Many of us wake up feeling kind of sluggish in the blue zone and have a hard time kind of getting going until we jump in that shower. We might be working at our desk in the green zone until we get an email that flusters us. And now all of a sudden we're in the yellow zone. And if that phone rings and you get a call from school that your child was hurt on the playground, maybe you're in the red zone. I'm feeling panicked. So we have what is happening around us influencing that. If we're in essence kind of draining ourselves, we're sleeping poorly, eating poorly, not managing our stress, that can also build up and be impacting our zone. So if we're not really doing that self-care, that can just cause us to maybe be a little more irritable and living in that yellow zone, or operating more often in that blue zone. So they're natural, they're all a part of us. And so one of the big messages that we have is just that all the zones are okay, and really emphasizing there is no good zone, there is no bad zone. We all get angry, we all have devastation and worries, and our zones represent our feelings. So we really try to normalize that we experience a range of feelings, therefore we experience all the zones.
Yeah. Well, what strikes me is that we all move through all the zones, but there's this that when you're dealing with kids, and a lot of us are dealing with complex kids, it's not uncommon to have kids who may get stuck in one zone or another, that they may be able to move through some more readily than others. Does that show up in your
Absolutely.
work?
Yeah, and I think it's important too that we just recognize that, some of us our character is just more yellow, and some of us, our character is just more green. Others, it's more blue. And so I think that's an essence of just kind of humanity and different people's kind of energy levels and character. So I think that's important to note. As well as, yes, I mean, there are days where I'll say I'm stuck in the blue zone today because it's just one of those days where you can't quite shake that mood. And other days I am operating in the yellow zone, and that sometimes goes from days to weeks,
Right?
And
periods of life. So,
and like when this is used either in home or in the classroom, we've seen children very quickly sometimes move from one zone to another. You see that as well?
absolutely. And you think about, physiologically, we have, parts of our brain that are meant to protect us. And that brainstem or amygdala is that survival part of the brain. So if that gets triggered by a threat, and that threat can be, maybe for a student who experienced a traumatic event in the past, maybe a sound of a voice triggers that threat detection system. And all of a sudden now they're in the red zone because their brain has told them there is a need to protect themselves. So now, physiologically, they have their heart pounding, their body is tense, muscles ready to fight or flee. They have their eyes wide open, dilated pupils looking for danger, and that heart's pounding. So, we recognize that neurologically, that threat detection system can quickly move us, into, say, that red zone, which we associate with fight, flight, fright, freeze, as well as, many of our learners experience sensory differences, for example, and just maybe the environment that they're in can be, essentially taxing that their system and impacting the zone that they're in, for example.
So do you have any other slides that you want to show, or can we pull that off or go
Sure.
back to the 4, either two, but I want to make sure people can see you and connect if
And
we're
we'll-
not. Go ahead, Laura.
I know we'll definitely have time for Q&A.
Thanks.
Leah, I'm curious, what's the youngest you've used the zones with? Or
I like to say around 4. Now, not every 4-year-old is the same. So that's to say not every 4-year-old is ready, and some kids who are younger may pick it up. But there is, I think, always the responsibility, the judgment of the implementer, the user to, gauge
Sure.
where their learners at, and just kind of as a baseline, we need to understand and identify the 4 colors before we start using colors to sort feelings.
Sure.
And so having some basic emotional identification is important too. And you can start with identifying feelings in others and associate with the colors before moving into self-identification.
Sure. So 2 things that I'm thinking of. One, maybe we'll send out a gift to everybody who's on the call today, because there's a within the personal power tools curriculum, there's something that could help for those 2 and 3-year-olds. That might be a nice kind of precursor to the zones for the littles. And I want you to talk more about the zones if people have questions. And also, I know you have some new storybooks, which I think that might be worth sharing about, just because one, as a parent and also as a speech therapist that works with kiddos with lots of emotional dysregulation and families who have dysregulation all over the place, stories can be such a great way to connect with kids.
Yeah, well, I guess, start with the stories. So my colleague and girlfriend, Elizabeth Sauter and I, we wrote, she's also a speech and language pathologist, and Erica on here, she was the director of the clinic we worked at. So,
and it's written a great book on social skills as well.
Yes.
Yep.
So Elizabeth has amazing resources at Make Social and Emotional Learning Stick. .com. And so we just wanted to bring this to life in a format that was really engaging and meaningful for kids. And a storybook seemed like a no-brainer. Long overdue. If I probably pulled people who've been following my work for a while, but so it's a 2-part series that's really intended to be used alongside the curriculum, as the lessons in the curriculum really bring the depth and the processing to it. But this is a nice way to guide and introduce concepts along the way. And we have in the back guidance and how the curriculum aligns with the storybooks. But they are learning about what it means to regulate, identifying feelings in their body, and building some of those interoceptive skills that are so important to regulation, and thinking about what a tool is and what a tool isn't. And they share with their family about what the zones are. And in a playful way, they kind of go into this imaginary dream world, but they ultimately are introduced to a few different tools and think about how they regulate each of the 4 zones and how their different tools would help them do that. And it ends in this what we call the road to regulation, or a simplified pathway to help them think about the steps of regulation. So step 1 is, how do I feel? Step 2, what zone am I in? Step 3, do I need a tool to regulate? Which one? Because we don't always use our, need tools to regulate. So we are really thinking about the situation and, what might help me. Step 4 then would be using our tool if we choose one. And then there's a reflection. I can have fun, do my job, focus, be in control, join in, solve the problem. And then we welcome to destination regulation. So the learning kind of culminates with this visual support that really can be a great co-regulation tool that adults can use to help support the learner as they might be processing some feelings real time.
A couple of questions come to mind as you're sharing that. One is, you said sometimes we don't need to use a tool. Then what's happening then if we don't need a tool? How do we know when we need it or when we don't?
We think about, what's the demand, what's the situation, what's my job, and am I able to meet these demands? Am I accomplishing my goals? When we're working at our desk, for example, and we're focused on our work, and it's coming out, we might feel stressed and in the yellow zone, but we're getting through the work. And then other times that stress might inhibit us from getting through the work. And at that time, then we might need to regulate that yellow zone and maybe use a deep breath, or ask for help and, connect with an adult as a support. So,
and that was kind of leads to the other question that was coming up for me is, do kids embrace this? Do they resist this? Do they get like what kinds of responses do you get from children of different ages? Because, interoception is a complex term that they're not going to get. So, and I know that you're giving it to them in language that they can receive. How do they tend to receive it?
I find students are really receptive overall. It clicks often really fast for them. And an important piece of that, though, is, are we setting up an environment that's safe, that's supportive, a climate that allows for all the zones to be okay? And if that's not the case, then it's more likely they're going to meet it with resistance. If the red zone gets a bad rap, and if there's any shame or judgment associated with that, which shouldn't be the case, but then that's where I find we falter in the adoption with our learners, because there can be this overemphasis on being in the green, and the reality is we're not always in the green, that we really want to honor where each learner is at and help them feel safe and comfortable in finding ways to manage that and give them agency and figuring out what's going to work for them to be able to manage those feelings that they have.
Well, and it strikes me that using this curriculum in a classroom gives you an opportunity to look at that on both levels, right? So you've got kids who are learning to identify and regulate, and then you've got teachers who are learning to identify and regulate, because it's not easy.
Parent, caregivers too.
That's right.
That's not an easy job. So.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly share. I've had parents and teachers share that personally they feel better when implementing the program because it's helping their awareness for themselves is increased. So, and it's just like you were saying with co-regulating, when our awareness is heightened, when we have better calming strategies, and when we're able to really have more control and regulate ourselves, that energy trickles out, right? So we're modeling and supporting those around us.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's opportunities to build perspective with our learners. As sometimes I would say to my own kids, mommy's in the yellow right now. I need to take a moment for myself before I can help you. And modeling what we're teaching and truly using the system with myself, because it's what I need in the moment. And it gives me an easy language to communicate that with, the younger people around me. Though I remember when Erica and I were working, like some days we'd be like, I'm in the yellow right now. And just as adults, we're using it with ourselves too. It's like, I can't process with you right now. I'm feeling, overwhelmed by something else that I need to deal with in the moment.
I'm so glad
I could have used that language with my mother-in-law the other night, That would have been really helpful.
Well, and I'm so glad you shared that, Leah, because really that crosstalk between adults, modeling that for kids in the home and even kids in the classroom with like co-workers, that is so powerful. When little ones get to see the adults using the curriculum that is being taught to them. I mean,
and getting to see that the adults are human too, right? That it's not just them that have problems, but that we're all constantly learning to self-regulate.
There is no mastery. I mean, and I don't know anyone who's mastered regulation. So myself,
maybe Buddha,
maybe Buddha, but since I haven't met Buddha, I'm going to just go with, I don't know that I've met anyone who doesn't struggle with regulation. And I think that's refreshing for our children to hear and understand too, is that, hey, this is something mom's working on. This is something me as your teacher is still working on. And I find a lot of our learners are really eager to be our co-regulators. Oh, Miss Leah, you should try a tool. Like they're ready to help you. Did you get enough coffee for your blue zone, Miss Leah? Like they want to help you be at your best. And it's a nice way to create that buy-in and really build that climate that, hey, it's okay. We all have feelings and we're all working on figuring out safe ways to manage our feelings.
So will you talk a little bit more about co-regulation? Because, you know, we live in a world where there's a heightened fear of codependence, right? And we want to empower our kids and support them without enabling them. And and you're really introducing this co-regulation as a construct that's a useful tool and additive, not something to avoid. So talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, in hindsight, no one was talking about co-regulation. I mean, really, people were barely talking about regulation when I wrote the book. And I wish I would not have. I think the official title is a curriculum designed to foster self-regulation and emotional control. And in hindsight, it's so much more than that. We're fostering regulation, and that is, so much of the role of the facilitator in teaching this is they're the co-regulator. And so calling that out and really giving them the confidence and, like you say, moving away from like, this is not enabling them. We are helping develop this skill set for them. And without co-regulation, it's very hard to learn self-regulation. It's really a bridge to help us get there.
Explain that a little bit more, because I like intuitively, it sounds like yes, and it's also a leap. Without co-regulation, you can't get to self-regulation.
I mean, from the womb, right? This feeling that you are, from birth, this feeling of comfort that you get from the caregiver, that soothing, you have to be able to, in essence, gain an understanding of what this comforted, connected, organized state feels like. And that's impossible to do as an infant without a caregiver. We need that caregiver to establish that homeostasis for that infant. And as they, build then more capacity to regulate with more independence what's being modeled around them, having a secure attachment, gives them the anchoring to maybe take the leap and try something that might be a little riskier, like walking away instead of hitting person around them, because they're in a safe space. They've have a sense of what they know they want to feel like and get to. And I mean, this is a very simplified progression of what is a developmental whole, skill or competency. But that co-regulation is just so important. And if you think about it, we're doing it all the time. This is human interaction. This is the teacher, saying, can I help you? I'm noticing you're frustrated. Or this is the kid being brave enough to raise their hand and ask for help. That's both co-regulation. And so this is nothing to fear. This isn't enabling the child. These are life skills that will lead us well. And through having success with co-regulation, we're going to build more capacity. We're going to have positive modeling. We're going to see others helping us problem solve ways to work through feelings that builds then one's own capacity to do so with greater independence.
So ultimately, co-regulation becomes a tool to foster independence.
Absolutely.
I would say so.
Yeah.
I would agree. And what I have seen is when this curriculum, when these tools, when this framework is really taught to adults, even before the kiddos, we are empowering, we are setting the stage for success. Because so for teachers and parents to have buy-in, to understand that this is really, we think we need to teach this to the kids. But in my experience, when the adults in the environment have these tools, it's much easier for the kids to then step up to the stage and learn about co-regulation
sure.
and self-regulation.
Right. And it gives the tools to the adults to help be the better co-regulator
Absolutely.
for them,
Right.
I would say too.
I would call it not codependent, but symbiotic.
Yeah.
You know, they really support each other in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm aware that we have about 20 minutes left, and so I want to make sure we have time for Q&A. So I'm not sure the best way you want to do that, Lauren, whether we want people to type something in the chat.
I think that's fine. Whatever anybody's comfortable with. If you want to type questions into the chat or just raise your hand. You can verbally ask.
If they want to unmute and
Sure.
ask,
Yeah,
that's great.
I've got you pinned. I have you pinned at the moment, but I'm going to undo that so that we can see. There we go.
You know, the fact that this is a more intimate group, I feel like
Right.
it's such a great opportunity. If anybody has questions, please feel free. Deb?
Yeah, Deborah, go ahead.
I so appreciate all that you're sharing and all that you're doing, Leah, first of all. And I love that the conversation went to co-regulation, because I totally agree that self-regulation doesn't develop unless the child has those repeated experiences of co-regulation. So my question is, not having seen your curriculum yet, I'm going to say, because I would love to see your curriculum. What I'm wondering is, as Lauren was just pointing out, that it helps those adults in the children's lives by learning this process. Is in the curriculum, is there a direction to or instruction? I don't like the word instruction, but information.
Are there guidance for?
Yes, toward the adult learning this, so that they can regulate themselves to be in a place to co-regulate.
There is not as much as I would like, if I'm honest with you. So the curriculum is at this point a decade old, and so I am working on an update.
Nice.
Being that said, with that said, it is it's not close to
We're not there
ready.
yet.
But it's very understandable. Like if an adult pick this up.
Yeah.
You know.
There's so much more I want to say, and I feel like I can say better. So I'm really feeling energized right now to like work on updating resources.
Wonderful.
But it just is a very time-consuming process.
Oh,
Understood.
I totally understand that. Thank you.
Yep.
What other questions? Yes, Sue.
Actually, I have a similar question. I'm an early elementary teacher, and but I haven't been in the classroom since COVID. Thank you very much, COVID. And I taught a class 2017, 2018, and I suspect that this very model was used in an earlier class, although I never could identify it. And I had a little girl who always was saying, I'm in the blue area, I'm in the blue area. For example, I'm wanting to know if you can give a couple of examples. This child was not happy to be in the blue area, but she was day after day saying that. Can you give a couple of examples of how you might help her, or how I might help her or somebody else regulate or self-regulate?
Sure. So, let me just give me 1 second to grab my visual supports.
Sue, thanks for asking. This is great. Okay.
As you know, visual supports are so powerful for those like early childhood, younger elementary. So this is an example that we might use. Here's the blue zone. We have simplified just 3 emotions per zone for our earlier learners. You could even go down to 1 or 2. So I might bring her over, and let's just say her name is Jalen. So like, Jalen, let's think about, how are you feeling? Could you be tired? maybe you're feeling sick or sad. And if she doesn't have an understanding of those feelings, then I might be saying something like, I'm noticing your head's down, you're yawning, your body's telling me you might be feeling tired. And I don't ever assume, I just say might be, and I point to some of those clues I might be reading based on kind of physiologically where her body's at. And then I might ask her, let's think about if any of these tools might help us care for our blue zone. Maybe, so you could prescribe for some of our early learners, what are some of those tools that might help her with regulating that blue zone. As our learners age up, we're working with them to really assess these tools and customize what is in their toolbox. So their blue zone tools are unique to them.
Can you go into a couple of examples with each of those tools? I can't see them, and
Oh
I'm
yeah,
just
so
wondering.
this is jumping on a trampoline, animal walks, like a crab walk or a bear walk, and this is a hug. And so these may be tools that would work for her, maybe not. If she's looking at it, then I might say, let's try, jumping or whatever. And so really that's where I say, like, so much of what this is us co-regulating with them to help facilitate really kind of this mental awareness and ability to articulate how we're feeling and build capacity. Think about, okay, yep, I know how I'm feeling. How do I need to regulate it? And so with time and consistency, she may be able to come up and be like, I'm in the blue one. I'm going to do animal walks. And that's something that, again, we would want to have, that climate for her where she feels comfortable and safe, and that this is accessible for her too. So you want to teach tools that are accessible for them.
The question that comes up for me around that is, I get you want to make space for people to be in whatever zone they're in, and we don't want to send the message, I think, that you only want to be in the green zone. So whatever zone you're in, you have to get out of that zone to get into the green zone, right? Mm-hmm. Or the yellow zone. So how do you get to that place of, here's a tool you can use to navigate it without making it's bad to be in the red or the blue zone?
Mm-hmm. We talk about caring for our blue zone, helping us manage, take control of, and maybe that's more like when we're in the red zone. Let's find a tool to help us find control in our red zone. So it's not that. What I saw was there was this lot of misuse and kind of abuse of needing to be in green, and that was never my intention. So I really worked to evolve that language to help our learners and facilitators feel, really stress that it's about taking care of, managing, regulating our blue zones so we can, and that's kind of that cloud, we can get back to the fun, we can get through our work. We might not be able to take away sad, but we might be able to regulate sad so we can participate in the, group project or whatever it might be.
So it's keeping them focused. Because I know that I have some kids who spend a lot of time in the blue zone, and sometimes it's about meeting them there and helping them kind of be okay with that feeling. And not always about getting out of it, but
right. And they might not even need to regulate if they're participating and they're getting through their day and they're, engaged with their classmates. I mean, we all have our down days. It's not like forcing a tool on them either. And if they're feeling crummy and want a better sense of well-being, then that's where our tools come in to give them that option.
Right.
And I think that is so key, that sometimes we might need to just feel sad. Like, I was working with a little girl and her dog died, and she was sad and mad and, like, she had all the emotions.
Right.
And it was very clear, she couldn't, it wouldn't be, I had no, reason to take her out of that. We were just
Right.
talking it. And the more she spoke about it, she was starting to feel a little bit better. And she came up with her own tool, what would help her feel better, because she didn't want to stay sad, but it was really hard. She was stuck. So she made a story about her dog.
Yeah.
And that just, so our kids can come up with, and Sue, that I was thinking of asking, this little girl, is there anything you could think of that would help you feel better if you want to feel better?
Yeah.
And interestingly enough,
Sheldon,
we had that discussion, and she would always ask for a hug.
Yeah.
Sheldon, do you have a question?
First of all, Lauren, thank you for inviting me. Wonderful to listen in today. And in helping people that I've helped in different ways, I felt I've used tools like magazines where they would take out their feelings. Just put a stack of kids' magazines, in this case, tear out a picture, stick it on a board. This is how I'm feeling right now. It could be someone in a playground. It could be anything like that. And just put those little stack of kids' magazines and let them rip away at it and put it somewhere to get out their feelings. When they're old enough to write a little bit about it, they can, as I learned very young, to journal. So journal your feeling a little bit, then share it with interaction with the parent or with the teacher, with the whoever is the interaction with. And I find that an incredible tool to use in a toolbox of helping. I don't know if I'm on the right track here. I'm just listening. So
Well, I think it's a genius idea, and it's a great strategy, and I think that's you're onto something that I feel like was onto, is that it's really hard for our learners to articulate those feelings. And I would say, some people are like, well, isn't it wrong to teach them just red, green, yellow, blue? But we're not teaching them just red, green, yellow, blue. This is just a category to help us sort through all these different feelings that we have. That's really hard to kind of identify. So whether it's looking through pictures and being like, okay, yeah, this is what I'm feeling, I can relate to this person, or being able to kind of understand, hey, I'm in this chunk of feelings that we call the yellow. Both of them give a bridge to being able to better recognize where kind of they're falling, and are, what I think the zones helps bridge for a lot of our learners is moving from some of those behavior strategies to some language strategies, when they can say, I'm in the red, and maybe they can't quite articulate, I'm furious or I'm panicked right now, but they know this, like this sensation coming over them is that red. Then we can help put the feeling to it. We can, or, have visual supports to say, well, oh, maybe, in that red zone, here's some options of what you might be feeling. And so it just helps kind of with that mind map of categorizing and articulating all these feelings that we have.
I think it's important that they know that it's okay to be in the other zones.
Absolutely.
It's really okay to be in the other zones. That's really important. Not everything's always going to be the perfect zone. Sorry, I don't know your color system yet, so I apologize for that. But it's not necessary. They have to feel the other zones.
You have to. Yep. And that's a really important message. And I think that's what, as we see this transformation in classrooms, where when they are using the zones well, they have this empathy building within that community, because they're having this realism of, what, we're not all just quiet, content learners. We have all kinds of feelings, and that's okay. And we're now better able to understand each other. We're able to support each other with those feelings too. And it's really cool and profound when you see that happening.
What I love about what you're talking about is what we know now that we may not have known 20, 30 years ago is the connection between what we're feeling and our capacity to learn, our availability to learn. That if kids don't feel trust, they're not going to be available to learn. And what you're doing is creating an environment, a classroom environment where they can feel safe and trust.
Yeah, and I think that work absolutely does begin with the parents, the teachers, those working with our learners to help, shift that mindset. I talk about, regulation is a developmental skill, just like learning to walk, learning to talk. And you think about, we don't, penalize these kids who don't walk well or talk well or, perform academics well, but we do this all the time to kids who don't regulate well. And so when we can shift that mindset and really help the adults understand that, hey, this is a skill set that our learners are going to be coming to us at with different ability levels, and that we're seeing this as something we're working to strengthen and facilitate and build community around and provide supports and foster growth, rather than a mindset of, here's my expectations for my learners in my classroom in regards to their behavior. Here's my behavior plan for the kids who can't do that. Well, that's often those kids who struggle with regulation. And so it's really shifting this paradigm of how we're seeing our learners and opening up different possibilities for them by giving the adults the resources to build more capacities in this area.
Yeah, just giving adults a chance to feel calm instead of tearing their hair out. That alone is just so powerful. Deb, you've got your hand up, and I know we're running up. We have a few minutes left.
I was just curious about boredom being part of the blue category or the blue zone, and just if you could speak to the way that that's put in, the thinking behind that being put in the blue zone. I'm thinking about those kids that that are understimulated, and they they have to do something. They have to get stimulated, and they're feeling stressed because they are bored, and then they go to that hyperactive point as a result. So I was just wondering if you could speak to that.
you hit on it perfectly, that you saw boredom associated with blue, but one of the really cool things with the zones is that the learners customize what the zones mean to them. So boredom might be stressful for some kids and they put it with the yellow zone. Shy might be associated with blue for one kid and yellow for a different kid, just depending on how they experience that emotion. So to kind of help capture the essence, we, chunk some feelings together, but as they get to know their zones and what the zones mean to them, then they're sorting out, and they really have that agency to customize this. With, for some kids even might say like, I'm in one of my kids took, blue and red and was like, I get in the purple zone all the time. And
love that.
Yeah. And, it has that capacity to take it and really customize it while you still have a universal language. You have,
Beautiful. Thank
the
you.
system that kind of holds, but then the structure has that variability.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking about how I might have used this when my kids were little, and one of my kids is colorblind.
So textures and characters could be used to help capture the essence of each of the 4 zones.
That's great. I would love that. So any other quick questions before we call it a wrap for today? Leah, I want to say thank you again. This has been a wealth of information and super, super interesting and impactful, and clearly has hit a lot of people and resonated with a lot of people. So thank you for what you're doing and bringing this to the world. Lauren, anything else you want to make sure we address? I want to thank thank everybody for being here for your engagement and commitment to the Powerful Project. Again, it's a completely volunteer-based organization, and so your donations go directly to support families in need with scholarships, and that's a really powerful thing to be able to say in this day and age. In particular. And just once again, I want to thank the sponsors, We Play OT, Brain Insights, Dr. Sunana Jane, and Perspective Center for Holistic Therapy, because all of these organizations come together to help make this work. And of course, the amazing work of the one and only Lauren Foster, without whose energy and brainchild and passion, none of us would be here.
Thank you. That's kind of you. And you want to just share quick about Impact Parents, Elaine, what you do?
So my company is called Impact Parents. We're at impactparents.com, and very similar to what Leah was talking about, we work with parents all over the world, providing training, coaching, and support. And our focus is to provide coach training to parents and providers to use with parents who are raising complex kids. So very similar, very complementary to the work that you're doing, Leah. There's a very simple model that's really easy to use to help parents and providers to really understand these amazing complex kids and guide them, empower them, enroll them to their own success. So thanks for asking me to be here with you. I'm honored to be part of this, and always want to support communities who are supporting complex families, because we all need the help out there.
Absolutely. Thank you all. I'm just reading. Thank you. I'm a parent. We incorporated the zones of regulation at my child's elementary school 9 years ago. I was so successful that the district expanded the use of the curriculum at different schools. So much success there. That's beautiful to hear. Thanks, Brenda, for sharing that.
Thanks, Brenda. Well, thank you for everyone too, just for being here today, taking time out of your busy, crazy lives. And again, it's an honor to be asked to be on this series and help support the Powerful Project. And yeah, my website is zonesofregulation.com. If you're interested in, we do half day and full day trainings, and we can connect you with all the Zones products there too. So.
Yeah, and maybe we'll get you back, like once the pandemic continues to simmer down, maybe we'll do an in-person something with Leah. We'll get her here in person. That would be fun.
That would be fun. Yeah.
Super. Yeah. So thank you all. If anybody has any questions, also feel free. We have more speaker series coming up in May. We have some other great speakers as well. The rest of the year, you can go to powerfulproject.org. Please share this with your friends, neighbors, colleagues. And, I think all of our speakers share the mission and the hope and the dream to really help those in need and make the world a better place. So
Indeed.
with that,
Thank you.
job.
have a great
Be well,
day.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Nice
you
to
for
meet you all.
being here.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.